I want to suggest that the question of human capital is just as important as the question of capital. And I think lately the accelerating ascent, the ubiquity and commercialization of artificial intelligence must mean that a renewed focus on truly elite human capital is the condition for us to safeguard the future of civilization in the West, both from external adversaries like China, but perhaps even more importantly from ourselves, and especially our postmodern and transhuman trajectory of late. I think we'll have need of in the coming years, maybe more ever than before, an elite in the true sense of that word, cadre of Americans residing at top levels of national leadership and state government and even bureaucracy. And yet we're confronted with a very sad state of affairs across K through 12 and post-secondary education. Exhibit A of this problem, I think, was illustrated recently in an Atlantic article about that peak of elite credentialing institutions, Harvard. I will not mention that Nate is an alum of Harvard. Not the real Harvard, the better Harvard for professionals. The article titled "The Perverse Consequences of the Easy A" documents an alarming trend at Harvard after decades of grade inflation. It's a little counterintuitive, but it's a very interesting discussion. So to give you a sense of the problem's progression, in 2011, 60% of all grades were in the A range, up from 33% in 1985, not that long ago. And by 2020-2021 academic year, that share had risen to 79%. Now, Harvard, of course, has studied the problem and its effects. It turns out, when it doesn't take much effort to succeed in traditional academic respects, students stop going to class and, unsurprisingly, are doing less and less learning. An embarrassing fact emerges from faculty and student interviews. Fewer students are reading books and engaging ideas at the world's leading bastion of higher education. Trends are similar across the Ivies. The rise of ChatGPT and other large language models are exacerbating this problem. This growing problem of the collapse of true learning in higher education should not be a surprise. The supply side for higher ed, teenagers, are rapidly incorporating LLMs into their daily academic lives. In January of this year, to illustrate the problem, Pew surveyed America's teenagers aged 13 to 17. I should add, given the pace of our AI current and future, this has probably gotten much worse even since January. So teenagers ages 13 to 17, it was found that the number of them using ChatGPT had doubled since 2023 from 13% to 26%. I suspect that is higher already. Awareness among teens of ChatGPT has grown significantly over the last 2 years as well to 79%. And with increasing familiarity, obviously, comes a rising likelihood to use it for homework, paper writing, even thinking. Also, the opinion that it is legitimate to use it for these purposes, let's not hide what this is really about. To use it really is to plagiarize. 50 to 80% of those surveyed thought it was totally legitimate to use ChatGPT to replace the old way of doing work. Now, some initial studies suggest that this problem may be worse than the rising temptation to this machine-aided plagiarism. So that an MIT Media Lab study determined that the use of ChatGPT in researching and composing papers led to underperformance. They sort of hooked you up and monitored brain activity in different groups. Underperformance at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. The main author of the paper emphasized that developing brains are at the highest risk. Now, this study is still under peer review. It's a pre-publication and a small sample size, so take it with some grains of salt. But I think it seems to confirm a common theme of similar cognitive and concentration studies done by many researchers since the rise of social media and the smartphone, Jonathan Haidt and others. So, we are sapping the attention spans and atrophying the brains of our high school students, and then the best of them are going to elite institutions of higher education, where they are less likely than ever to take any real advantage of their most important years for stocking intellectual capital and forming their minds and souls. At the same time, our pursuit of the holy grail of advanced general intelligence, AGI, is sold to us by our current technologist class on at least two tracks. It'll cure cancer, extend our lives considerably, help us terraform Mars, usher in a new age of abundance and convenience, et cetera, et cetera. Who doesn't want all that? And we also really have to do it pedal to the metal in order to beat China in the new nuclear arms race, that is the AI race. This generally pro-technologist point of view was represented in the recent attempt by Senator Cruz and others, somewhat surprising to some of Cruz's longtime friends and supporters, to get a 10-year moratorium on state regulation of AI into the big, beautiful bill. That effort failed, despite an intense lobbying effort from the growing constellation of pro-AI, big tech PACs, super PACs, and lobbying efforts, and generally pro-big tech. The MIT Media Lab also showed through their study that if you took the test group that was first asked to complete a writing assignment without ChatGPT, to rewrite their paper without it physically in front of them, but with ChatGPT's assistance, their measured brain activity demonstrated more robust engagement and retention, and the finished product was pretty good quality. So this suggested to the researchers that the use of LLMs as aids rather than originators of thought and writing posed much less of a problem to cognitive laziness and atrophy and looked more like a useful supplemental tool. There is a great temptation to use this new technology as a pedagogical aid, even as the growing research suggests that there might be problems with it. Dangers, advantages, sure, but it has to be approached cautiously. Some elite universities like Duke are trying to integrate AI and LLMs into their systems and educational strategy, even creating Duke GPT. I wonder how woke it is. The integration of LLMs into K-12 education is gaining steam as well, especially in light of the increasingly ideological bent of primary education in recent decades. If the ed school credentialed teachers in private and public K-12 really can't be trusted, maybe we just replace them with AI and cut them out altogether. Randy Weingarten will whine about it, but that probably makes it a good idea. But this experiment is currently being run by the private K-12 Alpha School, the mothership of which is based in Austin, Texas. And they now have, as of this fall, roughly 17 schools across the country, either starting or almost starting. Price tag is about 45 grand, although that may fluctuate if you're in New York versus Austin or even Fort Worth. Now, they boast excellent results. They test relentlessly, SAT, ACT, they test sort of at every level, while offering only 2 hours a day of actual instruction, AI tutor-based instruction. And then they have 4 to 5 hours, including lunch, of life skills, creative and collaborative group work, guided by real-life human mentors. This is a new experiment. Maybe they've gotten the balance correct or correct enough. We'll have to see how the longitudinal results come out of this when their cohorts move on to higher education. Maybe they've avoided some of the old pitfalls of screen-based learning and the trade-offs. We'll see. It'll be an interesting thing to watch. There are a lot, of course, of pre-AI age studies showing the positive benefits to students of getting back to the basics of education pre-screens. Taking notes by hand leads to much more retention and absorption of material, just to cite one example. But I think the bigger problem we still need to work out or work through is how we should educate elite students, how we should cultivate elite human capital and equip them to navigate a rapidly changing national and international technological environment that is still bedeviled, as it always will be, I would offer, by the ancient difficulty of preserving small r republicanism and the common good. The argument from our technological class is that they should be set free, that is the class and the professionals, and even subsidized and offered quasi-monopoly protection to pursue the quest for AGI, because if not, we'll lose the AI arms race and the West will be eclipsed by China militarily and economically. A couple of court cases running through the Northern District of California recently, one against Anthropic, and I think the other was against Meta. The judges both liberal judges were not quite sure how to deal with this problem. They both admitted that it was a problem, but what a lot of these tech companies are doing, which is what they've always done, is moving fast, breaking things, and asking for permission later. And so they were caught downloading the entire pirated library of publications they could find on the internet and arguing that it was fair use to feed them through their LLMs. This is just one aspect of which balancing old traditions of American property rights and intellectual property with our relentless drive to advance closer and closer towards AGI is rippling through our politics and our courts. I want to rip an international anecdote that's literally a day old from yesterday's headlines to further illustrate our dilemma and maybe to freak us out a little bit more. Putin and Xi Jinping were caught in a hot mic moment. Some of you, I'm sure, saw news of this at this China confab discussing the exciting advancements in biotechnology and organ harvesting and what they might mean for their own, that is Xi and Putin's longevity. So Putin, I think, is a little bit of a smaller vision than Xi. If he's excited about living for another 20 to 50 years, he's around 80, I think, you know that Xi and his oligarchy must be pondering and planning for the possibilities of biotechnology, gene editing, eugenic embryo selection, artificial wombs, and all the rest as a possible solution to China's demographic problem. You couple that impulse with the race for AI supremacy, and we must face the possibility, perhaps quite soon, of an arms race not only in AGI, but onto transhuman vistas previously relegated to the pages and screens of science fiction. I think navigating this future while preserving America's spirit of liberty and constitutionalism is going to be a tall order. It will require large bets to be placed by both private philanthropy and local, state, and national governments on the old tools and contours of liberal education, that is, liberal arts education. I think the ultimate control of our Republican future must not be left to the technologists, but rather to statesmen and leaders whose minds and souls have been shaped in their formative years by a deep consideration of those age-old questions in the West of justice, the common good, natural rights, human flourishing, philosophy, and yes, even theology. Now, the argument will be that we don't have time, and it will be a powerful one. The relentless pursuit of our new areas of technical knowledge will be sold as the more urgent task, because national survival may be at stake. But given the 20th century's experience with technical mastery cut off from ethical, political, and constitutional safeguards, the bet on the unfettered pursuit of technological supremacy to the neglect of all else is just as likely to result in self-destruction. So I think choosing one bet to the neglect of the other is equally risky. So I think our AI arms race must be augmented, supplemented, and ultimately guided and controlled by wise statesmanship, by the older ways of American liberal arts education. My hope is that many of the attendees at gatherings like this who are anxious about the fate of free government in the face of external material threats, like China, and internal spiritual threats, can join forces to navigate our brave new world with wisdom and courage. And so let me finish with an exhortation. We need urgently to locate, recruit, equip, and refine as many members of America's current and soon-to-be cognitive elite, that is, the best of our human capital, and help them become better readers, thinkers, and writers. They will then be properly suited, or at least as properly suited as we can help them to be, to balance intelligently and humanely our pursuit of technological progress with the traditions and principles of Western civilization. We need a Manhattan Project for elite human capital. Our difficulty is that we can't snap our fingers and replace the Harvards and Yales with Hillsdales. And yet something approximating that miraculous trick may be needed to save us from our international rivals and from ourselves. Thanks.